Hey everyone, Jamila here. Today I am sharing a conversation I had with a good friend of mine. Her name is Elle, and she has a podcast called Single Girl Woes. And we sat down and talked about what people mean when they say healing isn't linear. It was honest, it was light, it was vulnerable in ways real conversations usually are. And we unpacked what it looks like to grow through life without trying to rush or perfect the process of healing. So, if you've ever felt like you should be further along or doing your healing the right way, this interview will give you permission to move at your own pace and trust what works for you. Don't forget to follow Elle's podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Again, it's called Single Girl Woes. And lastly, like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I hope you enjoy the interview. Take care.
Hey, love bugs. Welcome back to Single Girl Woes, where self love meets side eye. I'm your host, Elle, and today we are talking about something we have all lived through in one way or another healing. And no, I'm not talking about bubble baths and journaling with candles, even though that is always cute. I mean the real healing, the kind that knocks the wind out of you, the kind that loops in circles, the kind that surprises you on a random Tuesday when you thought you were fine. This episode is called Healing is Not Linear because honestly, it never is. Some days you are good and centered, other days you are crying in the car with a coffee, wondering how you landed right back in your feelings. And love bugs, both days count. Today, I am joined by someone who truly understands what it means to sit with healing and to honor the messy middle of it. Before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Jamila is a crisis counselor and mindfulness coach from Georgia who knows what it means to sit with people in hard places. She hosts the Messy Middle podcast, where the conversations are honest, unfiltered, and focused on the in between moments we do not always talk about. She has written before, and her new book, The Weight of Light, was released last month. It is about healing, resilience, and the tension of carrying both pain and possibility at the same time. When she is not writing or recording, Jamila leans into small joys from popping bubble wrap when stress builds up to get I'm so sorry. From popping bubble wrap when stress builds up to getting lost in Sudoku and word search puzzles. Love bugs. Bear with me as I'm dealing with a cold, but join me in welcoming Jamila to the Single Girl Woes podcast. This
Hello,
is when I need
hello.
side
Thank you
effects.
so much for having me.
You're welcome. This is when I need side effects. Maybe that'll be for season two. I'll get like very tech savvy
I'll,
to
I'll
kind of
clap
have
for
like
myself. Yay.
I need like the sound effects and I want like the club horn that goes like burr, 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 burr. I feel like I'd be needing that. That's gonna be like season two. I may have to step it up a bit to get a little bit of those sound effects. But welcome to Single Girl Woes,
Thank
Jamila.
you
I know
so
we've been
much.
talking about this collab and cooking up something for a while. So before we jump in, I want to set the tone for why this conversation matters. When I think about healing, I realize how often we try to measure it by progress. How far we think we should be, how fast we think we should move on. But healing does not follow rules. It is not neat. It is not predictable. I myself have had plenty moments where I swore I was good, I was healed, I was done, and then something small hit me. A song, a scent, a random memory, and suddenly I had to admit to myself, nope, we're still working on that part. Healing is not about pretending you do not care anymore. Healing is choosing yourself, even when the old version of you whispers back. And yes, sometimes my version of healing looks like meditation and stillness. But then there are other days, depending on what I'm healing from, it's like cleaning out everything in the entire apartment while blasting Cardi B, feeling pretty and petty at the same time. That's like become my new anthem, her Pretty and Petty off the new album.
Yeah.
So like I have my moments where I'm like all nice and wholesome, and then sometimes I just need like real raw and ratchet as I'm
Yeah,
on this
of course.
healing
Everybody
journey.
needs a little wretched in their life, from time to time to get
Yes,
you
I feel
through.
like I'm like healing from like a lot of things. Like I spent a lot of time on the podcast this season, sharing how in this space of being single and just living life in general, how I've been healing from like the loss of my dad, healing
Hmm.
from breakups, healing from like just being at a space of realizing that, sometimes you have to let people go. And even in all of that, I am learning that it is not A to Z process at all. There are days I go from A to G, and then from G, we go back to C. So we'll start right here, Jamila. When you hear the phrase healing is not linear, what comes to mind for you?
I mean, for me, it just means that I'm not improving in a straight, predictable line. And what I think I'm supposed to, the trajectory that I think I'm supposed to be on is not the one that I'm on, but it's okay. And, being okay with not being on the trajectory of healing that you think you're supposed to be is actually a part of the healing. Some days you're going to make real progress, and other days, like you said, you're going to fall right back to where you started. And if you fall back to where you started, that doesn't cancel out any of the healing that you may have already done. So it's a roller coaster. It's a loop. It's a lot of loops. It's a lot of pauses. It's a lot of waves. And, at the end of the day, when you are on your healing journey, no matter how rocky or up and down or wavy it is, as long as you keep showing up for yourself, um, especially when the path gets messy. That's when you know that you are healing, when you haven't given up on yourself during the
I
process.
like that. It's almost like those, like, I thought I was over it moments. And then it's like something tiny hits you. Like you said, like that. I love that your podcast is called like the messy middle
Mhm.
because, like you say on your podcast, that's like when life really happens in that middle space.
Absolutely. Yeah, the messy middle is it's the point where it's the meeting point of where you are versus where you think you want to be.
Hmm.
And all of the things that you go through to get to where you think you want to be, and all of it is messy, it's unpredictable. The journey can be long, it can be lonely, it's hard, it hurts. um and then some days, you have really good days, like you said, you put on your music and dance around and have a good time. So you just never know what happens in that middle. And I
Yeah,
think the middle is what we don't actually talk about.
agree. It's almost like one of those things where it's like you said, you think you're doing good. And I mean, like I said, that's the thing about healing. It will tap you on your shoulder at the most unexpected time and be like, wait a minute, sis.
Yeah.
Like you think you have it all sorted out. And then like so you hit that middle and it's like, nope. So we're going to transition a bit to like surprises and healing. One of the biggest moments for me was how quiet healing can sometimes be. Like sometimes the biggest growth moments for me are not my loudest moments. They
Mm.
did not involve me crying or breakthroughs. They were like moments when like I responded differently. And then I think like, wow, I really have changed. So to your point, it's like that messy middle space where you're still going through something, but it's also in that moment where you realize like, I'm actually healing because I didn't handle that the way that I probably would have handled it a few months ago, a few weeks
Right.
ago.
Yeah, for
So what
sure.
are some surprises that you or what has surprised you most about your healing process?
Um, I think what surprised me most is just how up and down it actually is. Because
Mhm.
like for me, um, with my situation, I'm a couple of years removed from it. And most days it's still like front of mind, and I still feel like I'm not as okay as I should be.
Mhm.
I kind of I have moments where I get really like down, and I'm surprised at that because I judge myself for that sometimes and feel like I should be further along, with it than I am. So I think I was under the impression that healing was supposed to be linear until I started to heal, until I chose to start that process.
Mhm.
Um,
I like that you said that you chose to start the process.
yeah, it's definitely something that you have to be intentional about, and it like I said earlier, it's messy and it's tedious. It's a lot of ups and downs, and it hurts. And a lot of people quit when they start feeling that tension, when they start feeling that pain.
It's almost
And
like they don't like to feel, and I know this is for me, up until, like, I tell people all the time, like, my dad passing broke me.
mhm,
Meaning, like, I always was this person that just kind of, like, bottled up my emotions, bottled up my feelings. I looked at crying as a sign of, like, weakness. When I went through my divorce, like, in all honesty, I don't think that there was a day that I cried just to, like, process it. I think there may have been one time that I cried, and it was because of, like, an argument that me and my ex-husband had at the time or whatever. But, like, I really didn't cry to, like, process that. You know how, like, sometimes you have a breakup? Like, I've had breakups and I cried. I don't
mhm,
recall, like, crying coming out of my divorce. But since my dad passed, I find myself crying, like, all the time. And I'm just like, "Wait a minute." And just what you said, it's like, I think in healing through my dad's passing, like, I've had a niece that passed. I had grandparents that have passed. And I dealt with it. I may have had, like, one moment where I've cried, but, like, with my dad, I cry often. And
mhm,
one thing that my therapist said to me, he was like, "This time you are choosing to heal."
yeah,
And he was like, "It's tough because you're now allowing yourself to feel and grieve." My niece passed away 24 years ago.
mhm,
My grandfather passed away almost 3 years ago. My one grandmother passed away when I was 16, and my other grandmother, my son is 25 now, so, well, yeah, 25, so she passed away 15 years ago. And, like, when I tell you, Jamila, I never, like, I had that one cry, but then after that, like, I went, like, life was normal, like, I did not process it. And my therapist was like, what I'm dealing with now with my dad, he's like, "You're choosing now to heal yourself, and you're now, like, stirring up emotions that you just bottled away and put deep aside, and it's coming out." And so, you know, our joke is like, "Yeah, Craig broke me because these are, like, emotions that I just did not know I was able to show and not
yeah,
feel weak," if that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing about emotion. A lot of times we don't allow ourselves to feel them for whatever reason. We think that, crying is a sign of weakness,
Mhm.
or however we feel about feelings, we don't allow ourselves to feel them when we should. And so sometimes what happens is something comes along that shakes you, and you don't have a choice but to let all of that emotion out. And it's not just emotion about that one thing that happened.
Yeah.
It's emotion on top of emotion on top of emotion on top of emotion. It's all of it. all of
Yeah.
it is coming out at one time. So, that's, it's if
I
you're not used
totally get
to feeling your feelings, then, one day you're gonna be forced to sit down and feel them. And
that is where I'm at, girlfriend. That is where I'm at. Like, I have been like this podcast has been. I'm gonna go segue for a minute, and I said I keep my notes to kind of keep me on track, but I'm gonna segue for a minute.
Sure.
You have been, and I have posted this on social media, but I have said to you, I've said it even on the Transformation Tuesday interview that I did. You have been so encouraging in this revamp and what I'm officially calling season 1 of Single Girl Woes. Even though back in 2019, I started it as far as like rants of like being single, because that's when I was coming out of my divorce, but it was not structured. You have been so inspirational and motivating with the stuff that you're doing. And I have to say, like, even in doing the podcast the last few weeks, I have been consistent. This has been like the therapy after the therapy for me. And yeah, there's so much that even after I do the episodes, I listen to them on Tuesday, like I'm a listener, and I
Mhm.
listen to it with fresh ears. And I'm just like, I probably, and this is going to be very big of me to admit this about myself. I have probably been a very horrible person to be in a relationship with because of not showing emotions and shutting down. I commend this whole process with Single Girl Woes because it, even with therapy and like I said, through my dad and dealing with emotions, I am learning that being emotional, showing emotions isn't a sign of weakness. Again, podcast is called Single Girl Woes. I aspire to not be single. I want to be in a relationship again. I want to remarry someday. But what I've been learning, thanks to you pushing me to like stay dedicated to this podcast, is that the same emotion that I'm allowing myself to have during moments of grief and healing, that same level of emotion is also warranted to have a healthy relationship with your significant other.
Mhm.
And I had that aha moment like a few weeks ago. I think it may have been like the Shallow Hal episode. I was like listening to it back and I was like, I don't know that I would have felt that way of these things that I'm saying 2 years ago because I
Mhm.
had not processed a lot of pent up emotions. Like I said, again, like I know I spent a lot of times relating back to like my dad and like grieving that. But I mean, I think one of the episodes I did a few early on was like finding out about my ex-husband like remarrying, and I went through so many feels through that. And I don't the old me would have probably like launched out and cursed him out and used all the words that my mom does not like for me to say. That's my dad's side, like the sailor mouth. But for me, like I just was like, okay, like that's good for him. That doesn't mean that I need to like I had a moment where I was like, what good is it going to do you to curse that man out cuz he's moving on with his life? You can do the same thing when the universe and the good Lord has that for you. Just be patient, continue to heal. But that was a moment for me where I was like, I have grown. Like I am healing from that divorce because yeah, if I had found that out 2 years ago, I probably would have cursed that man out and had no ground to curse him out other than me being a spoiled brat.
well, let me just say this. I think that and not to be like in comparison mode or anything like that, but at least you weren't in a relationship with this person
Mhm.
while they are getting ready to get married. Cause like I found out about my ex being in a whole nother relationship with somebody like months before we even broke up. But I didn't find that out until a year after we broke up. And he married her.
Yeah.
And like I've known this for, a little over a year now, and I still have thoughts of like, I hope he git hit by a bus.
Right?
Like I'm just keeping it real. Another part of the healing, being honest about, like, how you really feel about the situation. And, if you allow yourself to say, "This hurt me," and, I part of me wants him to suffer for it.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with saying that, because that's how you actually feel.
Yeah,
But
and
then
my
you have to
therapist
come
reminded
back to
me of
yourself
that.
and think, even if he does get hurt, he's not gonna feel it.
Yeah, my
'Cause
therapist reminded me of that. Like, I don't want his marriage to fail. And in all honesty, like I've said to anybody, like my divorce was not like I didn't divorce because of like anything crazy. Like in all honesty, like we both realized that we were not the husband and wife that we wanted for each other. I'm
Mhm.
a very social person. He's not. And I did not get into a marriage to do like a lot of things by myself. Like I felt like if I'm going to do all these things by myself, if I'm going to be in this huge house by myself, like what's the point of me being married? Just because I'm carrying your last name? Like, no, like that's not happiness to me. Like at the end of the day, there's no amount of money, no amount of me not having to adult. And even though single girl woes, yes, I have my rants of like having to put gas in my own car, all the things I didn't have to do when I was married. That's human. That's just me being, just human nature or whatever. But one of the things that my therapist said to me was like, nothing is wrong with you still being upset that he can now, because again, I didn't get married with the intent of divorce.
Okay.
You get married, you have your thoughts of like, this is going to be my happily ever after. Like, I'm
Yeah.
a hopeless romantic. Even though I like the Disney villains, I am a hopeless romantic when it comes to like all the rom-com stuff. So it's like, you want that happy fairy tale like ending. And I think that's more so like when I found out that he was getting married, I was just like, so now you can show up and be what
Mhm.
you weren't for me
Yeah.
to someone else. But then again, he can have a wife that's just, I'm not going to say boring, but he can have a wife that's just as like a homebody as him. And that may work for him. The lesson that I have learned in that as part of healing is my next relationship. I need somebody that's as social as me. If they're not, they have to be open to, okay, out of the year, what are the 5 key events that you want me to attend with you? Because I understand some people have to have their social batteries charged for doing certain things. And I get that. But yeah. I won't say that I wanted to. There have been other exes that I have wanted to run over by a bus. But yeah, I just had, and I think too, the reason that it kind of like shifted how I felt with my ex or me finding out that he was remarried is because like this year would have been our 10-year wedding anniversary. While I
Mhm.
do not want my ex-husband back, I've been very vocal about that. I do miss being a wife. I do feel like my calling is to be a wife. But again, going back to what I was saying before, I feel like now I'm better prepared to do that because I have done some work the last year and a half on myself that I had not done before, that I didn't even acknowledge, or maybe I did and just was in denial, but that whole emotion piece. One of the things that one of my cousins said to me one time in a private message was, it's okay to say that you're not okay. And you need to learn how to give yourself grace, even in your moments where you're not showing up as the best version of yourself.
absolutely. I agree with that 1,000,000%. If you're not okay, and you don't feel free enough to say it, that's an indication that you haven't felt free, or felt okay longer than you realize.
Yeah.
And at some point when you were younger, you were not okay, you tried to say it, and somebody shut you up.
Yeah, I think it was also like one of those things, like, even on that, like, I've always been, how, like, sometimes, like, I'm not going to necessarily say even people create this persona of you, but it's like, how, like, you get in your mind, like, I want to be this type of person. and you get so locked into like living up to this persona that you have created for yourself that you almost become animated in a sense. And I'm not gonna say robotic, but it's like you disconnect from like real emotion.
Yeah.
And part of emotion is not always being okay. Like every day is not happy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm, familiar with that mask. Of saying that I want to be like, this super inspirational person, and I want people to look at me like, this strong individual who can go through, the toughest of times and come out, not smelling like smoke. But lately I've been living in the fire.
Hmm.
And at this point, I'm too tired to not say it. And I don't really care about how that looks to other people, because at least now
You're being
I can
honest with
admit that I'm
yourself.
not okay.
Yeah. It's almost like my mom and like older people always say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And it's like you get to that point and, you know, again, like I said, and I had to get to that point and it's like, I am okay now when people ask me how you're doing. I will say, I'm not okay.
Mhm.
I don't I never expect them to try to fix what's wrong or for them to, and I know sometimes it catches people off guard because they're so used to people saying, oh, okay, I'm fine. No, if I'm not, I'm not okay today.
Yeah.
You don't have to let me deal with it. But just being able to say that is like, has been so monumental. Even the aspect of like setting boundaries and saying, no, I'm learning that boundaries are not rude. Like, even in this single phase of life and being open to dating, I'm okay with saying no if something doesn't sit right with me. For me, boundaries and being able to say no is like a form of self respect for myself.
Absolutely.
And honestly, some people do not like that version of you that has learned to say no.
'Cause they're not used to it.
Oh, yeah. Or boundaries in general. Like one of my closest friends, he is also, I call him my brother slash coworker. And I have had to create boundaries even with him of like, look, 9 to 5, we can talk work, we can talk shop. Because you are somebody that also carries over into my personal life, if we are out after 5 o'clock and it's a social gathering, I do not want to talk about work at
Mhm.
all because that means like work is now 24, not 24/7, but it's like extending beyond the work day. It's extending beyond 5 days a week. And I
Right.
had to tell him, I enjoy our friendship. I do. I enjoy that, my mom look at you as another son. I love that, you are there for me in every possible low moment that I have. I know that I can always call you just to vent. Don't need you to give me no advice, but just to listen.
Mhm.
However, if you also need to talk to me about work after work hours and on the weekends, I'm going to create a boundary where you're going to just become a work friend and you
Yeah.
will not have access to me after 5 o'clock or days that I am off and on my weekends because this is a hard boundary that I am now setting.
And I love that for you. And, I've always struggled with boundaries because I've always been a people pleaser.
Hmm.
And, I've always had this, I want people to like me, or I don't want to let people down. So, I very rarely said no, or I very rarely canceled plans, or just very rarely put myself higher on my own totem pole.
Hmm.
And, when I started doing that, people didn't like it because they were so used to the version of me that, always said yes and was always down for whatever. And what I learned about people like that is those people are not really the friends that I thought they were,
Hmm.
and they're not the friends that I actually need,
Oh,
because
yes.
if if my if my well-being is not important to you, then what are we doing here?
No, I get that. It's almost like protecting your energy. It's like a full-time job.
It is. It
It's
really
like
is.
my space is sacred.
Yep.
And like if it does not feel good when you walk in, like you're not meant to be here for a long time. I had an old
Absolutely.
supervisor. And again, like I said, as I've been doing these episodes each week, it's like so many like past conversations that I've had with older people. Things in therapy that and we've for those that have gone to therapy. I'm not gonna say everybody goes to therapy. I think everybody should, but that's just Elle's personal opinion.
Mhm.
But with therapy, there are times that, your therapist says something and it's like you don't want to hear it and you don't want to like do the exercises that they try to tell you to kind of get over things. So you like just put it out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
But one thing, as I've been doing these podcasts, I think this is like week 9, is that one of my therapists, a few years ago, and one of my very early on supervisors at my first like adult job told me, everything and everybody in your life has an expiration.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the truth. And
And
not
I
not
get that.
everybody is meant to, it's like it's like Survivor, outplay, outwit, outlast. Not everybody is gonna be there to the end.
Facts, 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 and facts. So, as we kind of get close to our ending, fun question. If your healing journey had a playlist, what would be one of the tracks on that playlist?
Strength, Courage, Wisdom by India Ari.
Yes.
That song has literally saved my whole entire life. Like
I love India Ari.
I I love her. So I've seen her in concert like 3 times.
Oh,
I
I'm
love
so
her.
jealous. I've never seen her in concert, but I can imagine like all of her songs like has like so much meaning. One of my
Yeah.
songs doing like I'm calling this like L's single phase of life because it's the first time like I'm fully embracing being single. But her song, what is it? Ready for Love?
Mhm. Mhm.
That song, when I talking about healing is not linear. There are moments where, again, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, there's a smell, a scent. There are times where, like, I am just beating myself up sometimes about being single or are you being so picky? And that song would just automatically just pop up in my head. So I feel you on that. Shrimp Carriage and Was that is another favorite song that I like of hers. That's a
Yeah.
good choice.
That
That may be
song
my playlist tomorrow, India Ari.
that
Thank
song
you in
will
advance.
do it for you. And I have a bonus.
Okay.
I literally play this song, like, especially a live version of it, and I'm also just, like, obsessed with him. Um, PJ Morton's Everything's Gonna Be Alright.
You already know. I think I've sent you videos when
You
I've gone to
have.
see him. Absolutely. The live version? Oh,
Just
yeah.
just listen to that song one time, and it will
Yeah,
minister to your entire life.
it minister everything. I don't care. You could have lost a job, stubbed your toe, want to smack your child because they don't just irritated you, your coworkers getting on your nerves.
Listen, you could sneeze and that song will bless you, like, literally.
Yes, I have heard that song. So the first time that I went to go see PJ in concert, my cousin and we just were talking. I had listened to that song and I was like, oh my God, I would love to see PJ Morton perform this song live. I would love to just see him perform his catalog live.
Yeah.
Kid you not, 48 hours, my cousin hits me up and says, PJ Morton is going to be in Charlottesville, Virginia. I got our tickets. I told my cousin, I said, if you drive, I'm getting our tickets. The venue where he was at for that particular concert was like a standing type venue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I bought out the imaginary tambourine because this girl went to church.
Not the
when he,
imaginary
oh,
one, though.
when
No,
he sang that
he
song,
takes you there. He takes you there, and you go there real quick. and you
You
stay
go there real quick.
real quick.
0 to
That's how you
100?
know he's a PK because
Yes.
he got that honestly.
Yes. No, I told my cousin, like, oh my God. Like, I think there's a moment I looked at my cousin and I was just like, this is everything that I did not know I needed.
Yeah.
Then I saw him last year and the venue was different. Everybody had seats. And this time I went by myself. And I sat like in the like balcony because this venue, the floor seats are not the best because everything is like very level. So it's
Mhm.
like at this particular venue, it's like I wanted to be in like I think it's called like the grand tiers, like the section that's like right before you get to like the very top at the balcony. But I was like in the center and I made sure I got like first row of that section, the center.
Yeah.
And there were moments where like I felt myself internally crying.
Mhm.
Not just that song, but like everything he sings, he just adds that man's voice is anointed. He is definitely his father's child.
It's like you said, it's everything you didn't know you needed.
Every time I've seen him, I come out of it with a cleansing.
Yeah.
With a cleansing. So yeah, no, definitely your bonus song is the song that is like on my like it's my go-to. That and then I also like the live version of Mirrors by Layla Hathaway.
Mm.
That's another
Yeah.
one. Like I will say when I listen to that song, I ugly cry. I have a playlist on Spotify that's called like Motivation. And
Mhm.
there are some days that, I just need that extra before I go to work or, sometimes if I'm just doing my errands. And yeah, if I have makeup on, yeah, it's not good. Thank God for investing in like waterproof makeup because otherwise I will be walking into work and they will be looking at me like, girl, what is wrong with you?
Masterpiece by Jasmine Sullivan does that to me. That song would have me rolling on the floor. Cause you need that reminder, especially when you're going through it or when you're not feeling your best. It's like, you need to hear, that you are a masterpiece, regardless of
I
what it looks
like
like or
that.
regardless of what you're going through. There's nothing wrong with you.
No, that is her voice, and her voice is just so music is therapy.
It is.
Music is a love language.
It
Music
is.
is a healing.
Yep.
So, for wrapping up this portion of the conversation, my last question for you. What does the beauty in becoming mean to you right now on your healing journey?
The beauty in becoming is for me, I'm at a stage where I'm definitely trying to make some things happen for myself
Mhm.
and it's getting really tough. It goes back to what I said earlier. It's getting really difficult. And like me 3 years ago would have just said, forget this. And, I would have long given up. But I think healing has allowed me to see that I deserve to see my goals through. I deserve to have the kind of life that I want. And I deserve to go through the process of making sure that happens. And, I struggled, when I was younger with, feeling like I didn't deserve to be happy or deserve nice things or deserve whatever, insert positive thing here.
Mhm.
But now it's like I'm like Kendrick Lamar, I deserve it all. And
Right?
I'm not stopping until I get it.
I love that for you. Well, Jamila, thank you for sharing your voice, your experience, and your heart with me and the listeners today. This was honest, rich, and I feel needed. And like I said before, like, what better way for, as I'm getting to, I think after this episode, there's one more of like season 1 of Single Girl Woes, but what better way to kind of get to this finale point of season 1, and not like I said, have you on here because had I not saw your post about you launching the messy middle, there would not be no single girl woes. So again, thank you, thank you. I'm all about giving people their flowers, and so
I'm so
I
proud of you, girl.
I cannot thank you enough
I
for
am so proud of you, and I'm honored that, you allowed me to, to inspire you in that way, and I didn't even realize that I was doing that until you said so. I my podcast is part of a part of my own healing journey.
Mhm.
I'm trying to save myself, um,
Yes. Girl,
through
like I said,
everything.
I listen on Tuesdays, like I'm a listen with fresh ears. And I'm like, oh, did I say that? Who is this girl? Who am I becoming?
Same. And that's the beauty of it. That is you don't realize, until you actually like put yourself out there and say what you need to say, that you've kind of had within you the whole time the tools and the advice and the whatever it is to get through. You've always had it. You just needed a little something to help
It
you
just
bring it
needed
out.
that extra push. Like
Right.
earlier in the summer, before I wrap up, I went to this sound bath. It's this amazing photographer here in Richmond. She had got certified to do sound baths and had to do a few free sessions as part of wrapping up her certification. And I just signed up and went. It was out of my comfort zone. It was during a time, being totally honest and transparent, I was having like really aggressive anxiety and panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, and I just was having to like revert to just some real deep soul cleansing. And so I've, really got into meditation, was really getting into like sound baths because just like the frequency can just like, realign everything. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that she had it set up, it was, you write down your thoughts and your fears. And then, you went through the sound bath experience. And then afterwards, all the women were sharing. And one of the things that I shared was me having imposter syndrome. Like I have great ideas. Sometimes I think they're great ideas, but I get in my own head and it's like I talk myself out of doing it. I talk myself out of committing to it. Like I said, when Single Girl Woes started in 2019, just imagine where it could be had I stayed consistent like I have been now. And even in that, one of the things that came out of it, I thought I wanted, for some reason, I get a lot of people that come to me that are divorced, going through divorce, or thinking about divorce. I don't know why, but like I could be at a restaurant sitting at the bar. I could just be at the coffee shop. I could be anywhere. And somehow men, women, all races, all ages. And so I really thought I wanted to create a space to talk about just that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought about it and she was like, just do it. Like create your version of your TED talk. And, so I started like, okay, maybe I should do that. I had started even before that torn around with, I had come across a journal that had some poems in it that I had wrote when I was going through my divorce. And poetry is it's not my strong suit, but again, I need to step out of my comfort zone. So paired with that, I started putting off the podcast. And like I said, when I saw you were launching the messy middle, I was like, okay. The sound bath, when I went there, everybody was like, use your voice, just do it. Mila is starting this. Let me just shoot her a message and just ask her questions. I know like she'll be very honest with me of like what platform she's using. Like she's not gonna gatekeep. Like she's a girl's girl. And so when you shared the information with me, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buckle down and I am going to do this. And like I said, it has been the therapy after the therapy for me. So thank you, thank you, thank you for just on your side of the social media world and all the apps sharing the things that you are doing because it inspired me. And I don't know, we may do a season 2 of Single. No, I'm not gonna say we may. We are gonna do a season 2 of Single Girl Woes. Like I said, with some enhancements. I'm gonna give me a clapper thing. You
for
and this
sound effect stuff.
I'm gonna have some sound effects for season 2. I'm gonna use this winter break, this break to kind of figure out how I can get some sound effects. But no, in all honesty, thank you for that. Thanks for, again, this season would not have been complete if I could not have you on. So I'm glad we were able to find a topic that aligned with, safe space for you and just coming on to share. So huge, huge, huge thanks. Congrats on everything that you're doing. Before we end this part of it, please share any last words and how people can find you on social media?
Well, like I said, I just, want to say that I'm super proud of you and the work that you're doing, with Single Girl Woes. It's extremely relatable. I know I send you a message every week with something that stood out to me. And so, you are doing the Lord's work, in the same way. So I appreciate you for, following that inspiration that you got from me and going through with it. And I'm super honored to be a part of this with you and to listen every
Yay.
week and even to be on this episode. I'm super thankful. I will have you on my podcast, my season 2.
Yay. Can't
Um I
wait.
I look forward to that so much. You're a very dear friend and a dope human being. So I just thank you for existing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, how can the people find you to keep up with all that you're doing?
So you can find me on IG. I'm underscore just underscore Jamila. And you can also find me on Facebook. Just look up Jamila E. Gomez. I'm facebook.com/. Jamila.e.gomez. So those are the best places that you can get in touch with me if you want to chop it up.
Cool, cool, cool. I'll make sure I also include that information in the summary so people can find you. We're going to come back and officially close out this episode of Single Girl Woes. We're going to let Jamila go. We've taken up a lot of her afternoon with us. But again, thanks, Jamila, and we will be chatting soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No problem.